Well, 3 weeks have passed and still hundreds of Columbia residents are without a home, as we just saw in Jenna's story.
And the story is far from over. Here's a look at how we got to this point.
January 16th, EMS and fire crews respond twice to the same unit in the J building at Allen Benedict Court. 2 people are taken to the hospital in 2 separate calls to the unit. January 17th, police find 2 people dead in the J building. January 18th, more than 400 families at the Allen Benedict Court apartments had to be evacuated after multiple gas leaks were discovered. Officials say part of the issue was that they are some of the oldest housing complexes in the nation. Columbia Housing Authority Executive Director Gilbert Walker promises any work orders from the apartments will be made public. We learned the names of the 2 victims. They were 30-year-old Derek Roper and 61-year-old Calvin Witherspoon Jr. January 21st, Calvin Witherspoon's daughter speaks out about her father's life. January 23rd, Mayor Steve Benjamin travels to Washington, D.C. for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. He tweets out he will be meeting with HUD Secretary Ben Carson later in the week for a $30 million grant. The evacuated residents of Allen Benedict Court apartments are living in temporary housing spread out between 7 hotels across Columbia. The Columbia Housing Authority tells News 19 that a staff member is placed at all hotels to help residents. HUD releases inspection scores for Allen Benedict. They score an 86 out of a possible 100 for 2017. January 24th, the deep dive team spends the majority of the day looking through work orders for Allen Benedict Court apartments. News 19 obtains the letter from Columbia Fire Chief Aubrey Jenkins to ABC. It includes both fire codes and maintenance violations, including the presence of natural gas deemed unsafe for the community and occupants. Columbia Fire Chief Jenkins wrote, "Due to the severity of the noted deficiencies, it has been determined that all buildings at this location are unsafe." Columbia City Councilman Mo Badora calls for the resignation of Columbia Housing Authority Director Gilbert Walker. January 25th, News 19 tries to attend a meeting held by the Columbia Housing Authority, but we're told that it is a private meeting for residents only. Housing Authority spokesman and attorney Bob Coble says no one will be allowed to return to the housing complex. January 28th, the Richland County coroner releases the cause of death of the 2 men from Allen Benedict Court apartments as carbon monoxide poisoning. January 29th, WLTX reporters Jenna Krasina and Susan Artis were placed in handcuffs by Columbia Housing Authority police while trying to access the building that houses the public documents released by the Columbia Housing Authority for Allen Benedict Court apartments. The Columbia Housing Authority issued an apology to WLTX. January 31st, the Columbia Housing Authority Board of Commissioners holds a public meeting for residents and the community. February 1st, 2 new lawsuits are filed. The first is a wrongful death suit filed by the family of Derek Roper. The second suit is a personal injury lawsuit filed by Robert Ballard. Ballard was Roper's neighbor and lived in between the apartments where the 2 residents died. In all, 3 lawsuits have now been filed. February 2nd, Mayor Steve Benjamin announces the Columbia Housing Authority will not receive the HUD Choice Neighborhoods grant this year. February 4th, city leaders hold a news conference. Police Chief Skip Holbrook says HUD, the Solicitor's Office, the Inspector General's Office, and SLED are working with Columbia Police to investigate the deaths and the events that led up to the lethal conditions at Allen Benedict Court. February 6th, 2 Columbia Housing Authority Commission members announced their resignations. During a special called meeting, Commissioners Bessie Watson and Jennifer Rubin said they were stepping down. February 7th, a 4th lawsuit has been filed against the Columbia Housing Authority in connection to the Allen Benedict Court apartments. The suit claims that the Columbia Housing Authority created unfit and unsafe living conditions. Commissioner Robert Gist and Executive Director Gilbert Walker have been named as defendants in the lawsuit.